guys, what's up? I'm here to do a video review of Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid. I reviewed this book on my Bookstagram, so check it out. I'm gonna link it in the description box. But first I wanna say thank you so much for watching my videos, commenting, subscribing, sharing. It means so much. Honestly, talking about books is the pretty much one thing bringing me happiness right now. It's actually scary, it's actually obsessive, and I need to get a life. I posted this book yesterday on my Bookstagram, and I got a lot of comments because I posed the question at the end of my review, why do you think a book is for white audiences? And the reason why I did that is because a lot of people were telling me that they felt that Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid was for white people. And I had a problem with that because having read this book, I really stand by the fact that I think this book is enjoyable, fun, entertaining. It's not the best book, but this book was fun to read and I actually looked forward to reading it. And I'm not a white person. A lot of people have said Lusters for white people, Memorials for white people, Queenies for white people. At a certain point, it just gets to be, okay, all these fantastic, entertaining, relatable books about black people by black authors, y'all are saying it's for white people. I have to understand why. These are some of my favorite books out right now, and I just don't get that critique. I have a sense of why you guys think that. I have a sense, and I want to unpack it, but not today. Now, granted, do I think some black people write for white people? Yes, actually I do. However, I don't think that occurs in the fiction category. Usually when I think a black person is writing for white people, it's usually in the nonfiction category. And nonfiction, specifically race, anti-racism type of books. For instance, I enjoyed this book by Ujoma Olu, but I do think So You Want to Talk About Races for White People. I do think that because that is an anti-racist book, literally in the title, So You Want to Talk About Race. Okay, so you're extending an invitation to white readers. That's clearly what that book is doing. That's a nonfiction book, and the goal of nonfiction often is to teach. So that's not even a critique of that book. That just is what nonfiction is set out to do, to teach people. Now, to say that about a fiction book to me is kind of inflammatory because fiction is very much more, it can teach, definitely fiction can teach, but to say that a black woman sat down, or a black man or a black person sat down and wrote 400 pages, 300 pages, 200 pages of a fiction book featuring a black character, and to say that that book is for white audiences, I need an explanation. Now, I actually got some good comments on why people thought specifically Such a Fun Age was for white audiences, and I'll talk about that later in this video. But just, already wanting to pose this question, you guys, if you read a book, why or why not might you think that that book is for white audiences? Let me know in the comments. I just want to hear what you guys think. Okay, so let's get into Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid, what it's about, how I even came upon this book, yada yada. So I came upon this book when it was released, 2019. Everybody was talking about this book. This was the book club book. And having read it, I understand why, because there's a lot of things you can discuss with a group of people about this book. Now, when Reese Witherspoon chose it as her 2020 January book of the month, I already knew this book was gonna pop off because, she is the new book of the month book club thing on the block. Oprah has been dethroned, unfortunately. Reese Witherspoon, that's the sticker you see now. So I already knew this book was gonna pop, and it did severely. And I'm really happy for Kiley Reid because I think she has a movie adaptation on the way, and she got a lot of sales, and the next book she wants to write is going to be picked up immediately. So I'm happy for her. But the book takes a life of its own when it gets white approval. And I feel like that's what people are kind of responding to when they say this is for white audiences. Had this book not gotten the Reese Witherspoon approval, I don't think y'all will be saying that. I think this would just be another book by a black woman, and we'd all be like, okay. The hype was so much that I actually chose not to read the book during its hype year, which was 2020. Normally I could ignore hype, but when it's to the level that this book got, it starts to get actually hard to read the book with a clear mind. Because there are kind of two types of people, I feel like, in response to hype. Either they'll be overly critical because of hype, hating a book on the smallest things because they just want to be the one who can say, I don't like this book. Or they'll pile on the hype because they're like, oh my God, this is the best book ever. Generally, neither are true, and usually a book is just or relatively good, but hype kind of clouds things. So I was like, let me just wait on it. Having read this, I think this book is very entertaining. I don't read this book necessarily as trying to critique white liberals. It's definitely doing that, but I read this book as just a crazy story with black people and white people in the mix. That's how I read it. I don't read it as setting out to do any one particular thing. So that's why I feel like I can enjoy this book, because I'm not reading it as like a Get Out Part 2. This book is about a 25-year-old black woman. Already I can relate because I'm 25 years old. She's a graduate of Temple University, doesn't know what she wants to do in life, works as a babysitter part-time, works as a typist part-time, and her name is Amira Tucker. So Amira Tucker in this book, she's kind of lost. She doesn't know what she wants to do. She's also not the most confident. There are suggestions that she's darker skinned because she's the darkest person of her friend group. I could already relate to her and I already knew who she was. So I understand what it's like to be Amira. Me and Amira, I like her. Now, Amira is a babysitter for a white family, the Chamberlain family. They live in Philadelphia suburbs or rich area suburbs. Alex, the wife or the mom, is kind of like this lean-in Clintonian feminist from New York. She's very famous for writing letters to like corporations, employers to get, you know, the job you want, the admission you want, the free products you want. She's known for writing letters. That's kind of her like girl boss shtick. And she has like an Instagram account that's very popular. And she's just your like lean-in white New York feminist. And you know, you already know who that is. Now, her husband is a newscaster. When he basically gets a job in Philadelphia, he's like, we need to move. And I feel kind of bad for Alex because she's obviously gonna move with her husband. But I just hate when men are like, my job's over here, so you gotta move with me. No conversation as to what about the woman's job, but okay, whatever. So they moved to Philadelphia, and you know, Alex is sad about that. She's lost her urban cool. She's becoming someone's suburban mom. You know, she's a mom of 2 girls, Briar and Catherine, and she no longer lives in New York. And in fact, you can tell that she's kind of self-conscious about this because she still pretends on her Instagram that she lives in New York, even though she now lives in Philadelphia. When she hires Amira as a babysitter, Amira becomes a figure of obsession for multiple reasons for Alex, in my opinion. Alex is a suburban white mom, okay? That's not a cool place to be, okay? That's kind of chuggy, look it up, it's kind of chuggy. You're not a tastemaker. No one's looking at you for like, what's cool, okay? That's just facts. When she sees Amira, this young black woman, you know, thin, petite, kind of like living her, you know, 20s life, I feel like there's some racial, sexual jealousy on the part of Alex. Not even gonna lie, she's jealous of that urban cool, and you can tell because Alex literally looks up the music that Amira listens to, looks at her phone, she gets obsessed. And I feel bad for Alex a little bit because I do feel like it's kind of a result of this kind of like mundane boredness that she gets from being a mom, no longer living in New York. There's a scene that kind of changes everything in the book, and that is when Alex's husband Peter says something kind of racially suggestive as a newscaster. The Chamberlain house gets egged, and when it gets egged, Alex calls Amira to come over, take the kids so that they can make sure the house is safe. And Amira is kind of like at a party, so she kind of comes in her party clothes, picks up Briar, and goes to the grocery store just to like waste time. At the grocery store, her and Briar, and actually her friend Zara, because Zara kind of comes to hang out for a bit, they're just dancing in the aisle, you know, like just dancing, music is playing. And this white woman sees it, is kind of suspicious, talks to the cop, basically calls the cop on them, and is like, I don't think that child is theirs because they're black and that child is white. Amira's like, I'm babysitting. The cop's like, no, you're not. Look at the way you're dressed. You don't look like you're babysitting right now. And it becomes a whole fiasco. The only way that, you know, that fiasco even ends is because Amira thankfully calls Peter Chamberlain to come over, and of course his white man who looks like the father of that child, they believe him. During this whole thing, a white man is recording this interaction, and this white man's name is Kelly, and he basically goes to Amira after the whole thing is done and is like, you need to sue that grocery store, here's the video. Amira's like, I don't want to be a hashtag, I don't want to be a martyr, I don't want to be a viral video, no, I'm not interested in that type of life. So he agrees to delete it, and he sends the video to Amira just in case she wants to use it in the future. Now, I can see why people are put off already by this story, because it's like, wow, a black character gets pulled over by the cop, a white person's in the background to save her. But this book is so much more, and it's actually really funny. Even though it's too on the nose, I do think it's very interesting still. So that's what I'll say. I understand the plot line already is kind of like, some of you guys will be like, I'm not reading that shit because I don't want to read another fucking black woman gets stopped over by the cop. I already read The Hate U Give. I'm not trying to read that again. I get it, but I will say this book is funny, and I think it redeems itself in that way. Kelly, if y'all read this book, Kelly is scum. Kelly is what every black woman should be afraid of. He's actually the ex-boyfriend of Alex. He's 32 years old, but he ends up dating Amira because he doesn't know that Amira works for Alex. He only has black friends, and it turns out he's only, since Alex has dated black and brown women. Now, black women, we know that's suspect. I'm sorry, that is suspect. I don't know why Amira gives him the time of day. Maybe because he's really attractive. There's also this part of the book where Kelly literally says the N-word while he's telling a story, and Amira just lets us go. And I'm just like, Amira, like, this is a bad fucking look. Like, this is a bad look for black women. And part of me was like, Kiley Reid, why would you write this? I just feel like however, I feel like that characterization needed to happen because now we can see what type of person Amira is. She lacks confidence. She's lonely. And also we can kind of see who Kelly is. Kelly is a white man who's obsessed with this like black American cool. Amira's ignoring it because she wants to be with someone. She wants an adult relationship. You know, Kelly's older. He's 32. She's 25. Like, you know, she wants that, but she's letting a lot of things slide. And it's embarrassing, but I do think it's entertaining to read. Kelly in the book is very righteous. Even though he works in a super modern tech company, he's much wealthier than Amira. He has, you know, a nice apartment with a doorman. He tries to relate to Amira because he's like, I go to protests, I hang out with all black people. And it's like, no, you really don't even understand, like, you don't get it. You know, I don't know what prompts white men especially to kind of emulate black maleness, but I think like you see scenes of Kelly when he was in high school and it seemed like he wasn't that cool. Maybe he felt like he was obsessed with black athletes as a child. He was obsessed with black rappers as a child, and I feel like he's constantly chasing that by hanging out with black people and dating black women. Like, think of Chet Hanks. Like, that's exactly what Kelly is, except Kelly's a little bit more reliable, has a stable job, and is not crazy, but like, that's who he is in this book. I feel like the people have been saying this book is a critique of white liberals, but even more than that, I feel like this book is really getting at how obsessed with black cool white America really is. Even Alex, who, you know, is not trying to be black and who actually thinks it's disgusting that Kelly is trying to like chase like black cool, she's obsessed with blackness in her own way because that's why she's so obsessed with Amira. Like I don't think she's necessarily obsessed with black culture, but I think she's obsessed with like being a tastemaker, being like relevant. And those are things that blackness kind of naturally is. With Kelly, I feel like Kelly actually is obsessed with black culture. He has a sick fetish. Now, some of the critiques of this book have been that Alex and Kelly have such strong characterizations. Their characters are so colorful that Amira almost fades to the background. And as a book about a black woman, why does the main black woman not feel as fleshed out as the two white characters? I kind of agree with that. I kind of agree with that critique, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate and say that I feel like the reason why Amira falls a little bit to the background is because Amira's personality isn't larger than life. Amira's personality is literally meek, quiet, not self-assured. So those kind of characterizations are going to naturally fall flat. So I don't think it's necessarily that Amira wasn't fleshed out. I think it's that Amira literally is like a just quieter, meeker character. The other thing is such a fun age, y'all. Like, age is important here. Amira's 25 dealing with two white people that are in their 30s. Okay, so there's an age gap. 25 is not an age where you would be naive necessarily or stupid, but 25 is an age where you can still be unsure, especially when you're interacting with white people who are much older than you. The other thing is, you know, Amira, she's not necessarily supposed to be a good representation of black women. These black women are just writing stories and y'all are like, that's not how black women are. Yes, it motherfucking is. But even if it wasn't, it's fiction. It's fiction. So it's like, to the people who are saying Amira's not authentic, what are you talking about? What's inauthentic about her? Do you want every book to be The Vanishing Half? Homegoing? No, I don't want that. Do you want that? If you want that, then just avoid books like these. I definitely don't want that. I actually like books like these more in a way because I can relate to these books. I'm from California, I'm 25. Amira and just Josefa and Shani and Zara, those are my friends. I will agree. Kiley Reid should have probably characterized Amira a little bit more stronger. She kind of does fade to the background a little bit. But to say that this is for white people, just because Reese Witherspoon likes a book or that white women like a book doesn't mean I have to hate it. You know what? This book is good. And if they agree, so what? And if they don't agree, so what? But some of you are really reacting in response to the sticker more than the actual writing. On the comment section of my, book review on Bookstagram, a lot of black women were like, honestly, I was a babysitter for a lot of white families. Like, if you look at socioeconomic standards, it makes sense that a lot of babysitters are black and that a lot of families that are hiring these black babysitters are white. So, a lot of black women were saying, actually I related to Amira because I was a black babysitter. The black characters do kind of fade to the back, but again, I feel like that was because they're not wilding out. They're not wilding out. It's the white characters who are wilding out. So obviously they're going to take up more space. I just feel like the critique of it being inauthentic or for white audiences, I don't see that. And I'm even going to go ahead and say I don't think this book is a critique of white liberals. Personally, I don't read it like that. I read this book as a cast of crazy characters. That's it. And I think it's an entertaining one. If you read it like that, it's an entertaining one. Now, if you're reading it thinking like this is supposed to, drag white liberals and get into the race relations and how white liberals do that, then, you might not be satisfied with this book because it doesn't critique white people enough. To me, if this is supposed to be a critique of white people, it could have gone way harder. That's what I'm going to say about this book. But anyway, that's my review, and thank you for watching. Bye.